At my birthday banquet, my wife was carefully helping her assistant adjust his tie. "Honey, does Benja look presentable?" I looked at Benjamin, who had a smug look on his face and was standing tall with his chest out, and let out a cold laugh. "Presentable? Stick a feather on him and he'd think he's a fighting cock." That night, I made a video call to my father-in-law. "You old bastard. This is the first time." "Yeah." We agreed. Only 3 chances. The old man grinned, forcing out a smile. I spat. "Fucking ugly. Worse than crying." Chapter 1. After hanging up the call, I let out a sigh. To say I didn't mind at all would be a lie. After all, 5 years of marriage, Rosie had played the role of a wife very well. But to say I minded a lot wouldn't be realistic either. After all, I married her to fulfill a promise I made back then. I minded a little. That night, I stood on the balcony smoking, snow-white arms wrapped around my waist from behind. The clean scent of body wash slipped into my nose. "Honey, what are you thinking about?" Her chin rested on my shoulder. Her damp hair brushed against me, making me a bit itchy. I coldly pried her hands away and pushed her back. I knew this was Rosie's way of hinting an invitation, but I really wasn't in the mood today. Turning around, I looked at her calmly and said in a commanding tone, "Rosie, I don't like Benjamin being your assistant. Fire him." Rosie looked confused. "Why?" I didn't explain, and I didn't say anything more. Under Rosie's bewildered gaze, I went to the guest bedroom. In my view, anything I say has been carefully thought through. You either carry it out, or you refuse. Just don't ask why. Since she thought it was perfectly normal to bring a male assistant to my birthday banquet, and to straighten his tie in public, then there was no need to continue the conversation. Different values, talking would be pointless anyway. Lying on the bed in the guest room with my eyes closed, trying to rest, I heard the door open. Rosie poked her head in and asked cautiously, "Honey, is it because I brought Benjamin to your birthday banquet today?" I opened my eyes and looked at her calmly. "I'm sorry, I didn't think it through. I thought Benjamin had never been to this kind of gathering, so I brought him along to broaden his horizons." As Rosie apologized, she walked in. She gently climbed onto the bed, snuggling into my arms and rubbing against me ingratiatingly. "Honey, I'm really sorry. Even though there's nothing between me and Benjamin, making you uncomfortable is my fault. Please forgive me. I promise it won't happen again." Seeing how humble and eager to please she looked, my heart softened a little. "Rosie, this is the first time. I hope it's also the last." Rosie immediately raised her right hand and swore solemnly that she would never do it again. Her hands roamed over my body, taking the initiative to help me slip out of my clothes. "Honey, happy birthday. I'm giving myself to you as a present. Do you like it?" As she spoke, she took off her nightgown, revealing a large bow tied around her body. I was a little surprised, and a little tempted. She leaned close to my ear, her voice seductive. "Honey, come on, open your birthday present." I liked the way Rosie teased me. Outside, she was cold, restrained, and kept a faint distance from everyone, but with me, she was alluring and seductive. That contrast fascinated me. Even though ours was a marriage of alliance, from the day we married, she had earnestly managed our marriage, fulfilling her duties as a wife. So, overall, I was quite satisfied with her. Chapter 2. Nothing was said throughout the night. When I woke up the next morning, Rosie was already gone. As the president of the Sun Group, Rosie's son was extremely dedicated. I had tried to persuade her before not to work so hard. After all, given the scale of my family, supporting a mere Sun Group was hardly a problem. Besides, my dad has only one son, me. In the end, wouldn't everything still be mine? But every time I told her she didn't need to push herself so hard, Rosie's son would smile at me gently. "Honey, I'm not working this hard for money. I want to grow the Sun Group as soon as possible, so I can stand by your side with confidence and dignity." She always knew how to provide emotional value, making me feel that this marriage was something I was in control of. My sense of conquest as a man was greatly satisfied, and I truly enjoyed this dynamic between us. After lunch, I strolled leisurely to the family's group headquarters. When I pushed open the door to the CEO's office, my dad was sitting in my seat. His sudden appearance surprised me. Ever since he retired, he rarely came here. "Old man, what's up?" I asked casually as I put down my bag. My dad frowned and immediately started scolding me. "Coming to work at noon every day, just because the company belongs to your family doesn't mean you can be this careless." I smiled at him and waited for what came next. "Can't you learn from your wife and work hard every day?" Hearing this, displeasure welled up inside me. Looks like Rosie had gone to him. "Just say it. What did Rosie tell you?" My dad snorted. "Your wife called me this morning, apologizing non-stop. She said she brought her assistant to your birthday banquet yesterday and made you angry." I frowned, the irritation in my heart reaching its peak. Ignoring my displeasure, my dad continued, "Mason, it's not that I want to lecture you, but she's so busy. What's wrong with bringing an assistant?" I really couldn't listen anymore and interrupted him. "Are you done?" If so, you can leave. Chairman Emeritus, I need to work. Seeing that I was clearly showing him out, my dad stood up with a darkened face and left. After he left, I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, staring into the distance, thinking about the whole situation. Rosie and I are husband and wife. Any problems between us should be resolved behind closed doors. Family matters are not meant to be aired in public, not even to parents. Rosie had clearly crossed a line. I didn't blame my dad. I knew he liked Rosie, but I'm the one living with her. I have my own views, and my dad can't force his opinions onto me. Just like how my dad appreciates Rosie's dedication. I come to work at noon every day and still handle everything efficiently. Why must work be done strictly on a fixed schedule? Times are changing, and mindsets should change too. Unable to reach a conclusion, I decided to talk to Rosie that evening, to see what she was really thinking. At 5 in the afternoon, I picked up my briefcase and left the CEO's office. As soon as I reached the parking lot, I saw Rosie's car parked next to mine. That was unusual. Rosie, who normally wouldn't leave work before 8, must have been possessed by something today. When she saw me, Rosie opened the car door and walked over with a smile. "Honey, you're off work?" I nodded. "Honey, Celestine organized a get-together today and invited both of us. I came to pick you up." Celestine was her close friend and also someone from our social circle. We attended gatherings like this every time, but we always went separately. "You could have just called. I'm not crippled. I don't need you to pick me up." Rosie smiled and linked her arm through mine, walking toward her car. "I got off work early today and just wanted to come get you." I nodded. When we reached her car, I reached out to open the passenger door. Rage surged instantly. Benjamin was leaning back in the passenger seat, shoes off, his feet propped up in front of him. Seeing me, Benjamin didn't move his feet at all. He just casually greeted me. I stared at him coldly, and he met my gaze without yielding an inch. It was fucking disgusting. Furious, I slammed the door shut and walked toward my own car. Rosie hurried after me. She explained anxiously, "Honey, Benjamin is my assistant. He needs to get to know my friends." I stared at Rosie without saying a word, until she guiltily looked away, not daring to meet my eyes. I shook off her hand and got into my own car. Chapter 3. It wasn't that I could endure it. I just hadn't sunk so low as to argue with her in public. Rosie got back into her car, started the engine, and led the way. I followed behind her, my mood refusing to settle. Rosie had been acting very strangely lately. She wasn't someone who failed to read the room. She definitely knew that doing this would make me angry. So what was her goal? Surely she wasn't testing my bottom line. I couldn't quite figure out what Rosie was really thinking. At the entrance of the club, Rosie affectionately looped her arm through mine. I didn't shake her off. In front of friends, basic decorum still had to be maintained. Benjamin followed behind with his head lowered, silent. No one knew what he was thinking. I couldn't be bothered with him and walked into the private room with Rosie. When Celestine saw Rosie and me enter, she immediately arranged seats, but she completely ignored Benjamin, who had followed in. Benjamin stood there awkwardly, no one paying him any attention. Gradually, his face flushed red, clearly humiliated. He stubbornly looked at Rosie. After I sat down, I leaned back leisurely and looked at Benjamin. He was like a joke. The others followed my gaze and also looked at Benjamin. Benjamin's eyes instantly reddened. Just as I thought he wouldn't be able to take the humiliation and would leave, Rosie spoke up. "Benja, come sit next to me." The aggrieved-looking Benjamin instantly broke into a smile. He trotted over and sat tightly beside Rosie. Celestine and the others looked at Rosie in surprise. Rosie, however, acted as if nothing was wrong. She picked up the kettle and carefully rinsed Benjamin's tableware for him. I tilted my head and looked at Rosie with a playful, probing gaze. No one spoke in the private room. The atmosphere was awkward to the extreme. As the host, Celestine finally spoke to break the silence. "Today's on me. I invited everyone to get together. We can't let our relationships grow distant. Right, young Master Mason?" She took the initiative to talk to me because she was afraid I might suddenly explode. I smiled and nodded, not a trace of displeasure on my face. Seeing that I didn't blow up, everyone let out a quiet sigh of relief, and the atmosphere gradually warmed. Rosie kept quietly teaching Benjamin the tricks and etiquette of socializing on such occasions, completely ignoring everyone else. Celestine couldn't take it anymore and stood up with her glass. "Young Master Mason, I toast you and Rosie among all of us. You two have the best relationship. Wishing you both a long and lasting marriage." That remark was clearly meant for someone in particular. I had to admit, Celestine was smart. She was not only currying favor with me, but also reminding Rosie and warning Benjamin. I raised my glass and thanked her. Rosie was just about to lift her glass when Benjamin stopped her. "Rosie, I'll drink this one for you." As he spoke, he picked up Rosie's glass. Celestine's expression changed instantly as she stared at Benjamin without blinking. I smiled, watching Rosie with interest. curious to see how she would respond. Rosie froze for a moment, then smiled helplessly. Benja, this drink can't be taken for someone else. Unexpectedly, Benjamin was stubborn. Why not? You're my boss and also my respected senior. If they try to make you drink, I have to block it for you. Celestine had a fiery temper and slammed her glass down. Who the hell do you think you are? Acting like a pretentious coquette here. Everyone at this table is a seasoned fox. Do you really think we can't see your filthy little intentions? After saying that, she shot an unhappy look at Rosie. Rosie, what do you mean by this? A friend's gathering, why bring an outsider? Benjamin hadn't expected Celestine to attack so suddenly. Startled, he looked at Rosie with a pitiful expression. Rosie stood up and took the glass from Benjamin's hand. All right, Celestine, don't be angry. Benjamin is still young, don't judge him with malice. Celestine looked a bit stunned. She couldn't understand Rosie's attitude. The people at the table looked at Rosie with a few more traces of intrigue in their eyes. Rosie finished the drink and smiled at me. Honey, you can't keep multiple fish in the pond, you know. I set my glass down and chuckled lightly. I suddenly don't feel like drinking anymore. How about letting your assistant drink for me? Rosie, Celestine, and the others all changed expressions instantly. The implications of my words were far too heavy. Rosie was just about to explain when Benjamin pulled her back. Rosie, it's fine. I'll drink for brother-in-law. As he spoke, he stepped around Rosie and reached for my glass. Celestine exploded with rage. Are you fucking looking for death? I toasted Mason and Rosie as a couple. What does it have to do with you? Are you and Rosie a couple? Before Benjamin could speak, Rosie cut in unhappily. Celestine, why are you being so aggressive? Benjamin isn't that complicated, he's just too innocent. I picked up my glass and smiled at Benjamin. You want to drink? This idiot nodded without understanding a thing. I didn't indulge him. I directly smashed the glass into Benjamin's face, then wiped my hands. I'm not interested anymore. You all enjoy yourselves. With that, I stood up and walked out, passing by Rosie. Chapter 4. I had just reached the door of the private room when someone grabbed my hand. Honey, don't go. I shook Rosie off in disgust and left without looking back. Once outside, someone hugged me from behind. Honey, you misunderstood. Benjamin is still young. He doesn't even understand the meaning behind that drink. I turned around and looked at Rosie's anxious face, with Benjamin standing behind her, and smiled. You'd better go comfort your pure little assistant first. He's about to cry. Rosie turned back, displeased, and looked at Benjamin. Why did you follow us out? That did it. Benjamin really started crying. I'm sorry, Sister Rosie. I was worried about you. That, Sister Rosie, made my skin crawl. But worried about Rosie, what did that mean? Worried I'd hit her. Rosie looked at Benjamin and shook her head helplessly. Benja, it's fine, but thank you for your concern. Watching the two of them act so emotionally attached made me feel sick. You two take your time putting on this touching little show. I'm leaving. With that, I pried Rosie's hand off and walked away without hesitation. After driving home, I made a video call to my father-in-law. You old bastard. That idiot you raised just provoked me for the second time. There's only one chance left. The old man was shocked. That shouldn't be possible. Son-in-law. I already called and warned her after last time. My face turned cold. What? You think I'm lying to you? He waved his hands quickly. Of course not. You wouldn't bother lying over something like this. Don't worry this time. I'll definitely talk to her properly. I guarantee there won't be a next time. I sighed. Let's hope so. After hanging up, I looked at the wedding photo hanging by the bed and fell into a daze. On our wedding day, Rosie had clung tightly to my arm, as if she had obtained a priceless treasure. Back then, she loved me, and she genuinely wanted to marry me. But now, openly defending a poor college student she was sponsoring, what exactly did that mean? I couldn't figure it out, and I didn't feel like trying. By midnight, I had already slept once, but Rosie still hadn't come back. I called her, but no one answered. After calling several times, I lost all patience and went back to sleep. When daylight broke, I opened my eyes and saw the empty space beside me. Clearly, Rosie hadn't come home all night. Without the slightest hesitation, I picked up my phone and called again. The call was answered quickly. Young Master Mason, are you looking for President's son? Hearing Benjamin's voice, my anger shot straight to my head. Why are you answering her phone? Where's Rosie? Benjamin's smug, playful voice came through. Rosie, she was too tired last night, she's sleeping. I didn't believe a single word he said. Rosie was someone who knew her limits. She wouldn't do something this outrageous. Whose call is it? A drowsy female voice came through. My heart tightened instantly. No one important. Rosie, go back to sleep. Okay. I hung up the phone directly and stared out the window in silence. So it turns out the human heart is the hardest thing to read. Even people you think are proper can cheat. Even things you think could never happen still happen. I got up, got dressed, and made up my mind. A WeChat notification sounded. I opened it. It was a photo. Taken by Benjamin. In the picture, Rosie was lying on the bed, sleeping soundly. Screenshot. Saved. Done in one smooth move. I drove to the company and instructed my lawyer to draft a divorce agreement. Near the end of the workday, Rosie sent me a message. Honey, Dad asked the two of us to come home for dinner today. I'll go back first to get things ready. You can come straight over after work. I looked at my phone and let out a cold laugh. Perfect. I'll settle everything at once. Chapter 5. When I arrived at Rosie's family villa, I saw Rosie's car parked at the entrance. Clearly, she was home. The moment I walked in, I saw Benjamin serving tea to the old man. The old man looked impatient. Benjamin, however, wasn't embarrassed at all, constantly flattering him. When he saw me come in, the old man hurriedly stood up. My son-in-law is here. I chuckled. So, have you figured out what's going on? The old man wiped the sweat off his forehead awkwardly. I have. I instantly snapped. You figured out jack shit. After shooting him a hard glare, I sat directly in the main seat. Benjamin came over and greeted me ingratiatingly. Young Master Mason, you're here. I looked at Benjamin without reacting. Now wasn't the time to deal with him yet. I needed to settle Rosie first. Assistant Benjamin, I said coolly. This is a family dinner, yet President's son brought you along. What exactly are you to her? Hearing the sarcasm in my tone, Benjamin immediately put on an obedient, well-behaved look. I sneered inwardly. Who was he fooling? Hadn't he used Rosie's phone to send me photos and provoke me just that morning? Rosie came out of the kitchen carrying dishes. When she heard what I said, she set the plate down heavily on the table. Honey, what nonsense are you talking about? I brought Benja here so he could meet Dad. For all these years, I've always treated Benja like a younger brother. Looking at Rosie's displeased face, I felt a sense of unfamiliarity. The person in front of me didn't seem like the wife I had married 3 years ago. Our days and nights together, the closeness we once shared, felt like something from a distant past. After everyone took their seats, the old man and I sat facing each other. Rosie sat beside me, with Benjamin pressed close to her other side. No one spoke. Everyone ate in silence, each harboring their own thoughts. Benjamin was the first to break the quiet at the table. Sister Rosie, I can't reach the shrimp. Can you help pick one for me? I want to try your cooking. Rosie immediately picked up a shrimp and thoughtfully placed it into his bowl. I set my chopsticks down and looked at the old man with a half smile. The old man also put down his chopsticks and looked at me helplessly. Benjamin didn't feel awkward at all. Instead, he complained to Rosie in an oily tone. Sister Rosie, I've never eaten this kind of shrimp before. I don't know how to peel it. Rosie looked at him indulgently, put down her chopsticks, and peeled the shrimp for him. I laughed and spread my hands at the old man. At that point, he had nothing left to say. After finishing peeling the shrimp, Rosie finally noticed something was off at the table. Why are you all staring at me? Eat. I wiped my hands. I won't eat anymore. I'm too disgusted to swallow. With that, I took the printed divorce agreement out of my briefcase and handed it to Rosie. Take a look. If there's no problem, sign it. Rosie took the agreement, completely confused. When she saw the words clearly, her expression changed instantly. Mason, what do you mean by this? Faced with her questioning, I didn't answer. Instead, I looked at the old man. He looked at me with difficulty. Son-in-law, how about you give Rosie one more? I cut him off immediately. Stop. Are you trying to disgust me to death? The old man shook his head helplessly. Rosie looked between me and her father, utterly confused. What kind of riddles are you two playing? Chapter 6. While no one was paying attention, Benjamin quietly took the divorce agreement from in front of Rosie. As he flipped through it, a look of delight flashed in his eyes. The old man looked at the daughter he had raised himself and let out a regretful sigh. Rosie, sign it. Rosie shot to her feet. Dad, have you lost your mind? Mason and I are doing just fine. Why would we get a divorce? Hearing her say we were doing just fine, I almost couldn't believe my ears. Rosie, who gave you the illusion that we're doing just fine? She stared at me in shock. Honey, what do you mean? Unhurried, I took out my phone and opened my chat with Rosie. Sure enough, the provocative photo Benjamin had sent that morning had been withdrawn. But I wasn't worried. I had taken a screenshot the moment I saw it. I pulled up the image and shoved my phone in front of Rosie. Look closely. Do you really think I'd want a woman who stays out all night and shares a room with another man? Rosie stared at the photo, as if recalling something. The next second, she turned and glared at Benjamin, who was holding the divorce agreement and smiling as he read it. Benjamin, what are you smiling about? Are you that happy about me getting divorced? Benjamin immediately wiped the smile off his face and looked at Rosie pitifully. Why did you send this photo to my husband? What were you trying to do? Benjamin panicked. Rosie, I didn't mean anything else. Mason asked where you were, so I sent him a photo. I was just worried he'd be concerned. After being yelled at, he looked even more aggrieved. Unfortunately for him, Rosie no longer showed him her usual indulgence. She pulled out her phone and started checking. she discovered that all my call records had been deleted, and there were withdrawal records in WeChat as well. Rosie's finger trembled as she pointed at Benjamin. Benjamin, are you looking to die? Who told you to touch my phone, and who told you to provoke my husband? I sat beside the old man, watching the two of them turn on each other with calm interest. In the end, Rosie couldn't hold back and slapped Benjamin hard across the face. Benjamin covered his cheek and looked at Rosie. Wronged. Rosie, don't you usually leave your phone with me? I've always been the one answering your calls. Rosie rushed up to him and started punching and kicking him. How dare you sow discord? When did I ever leave my phone with you? Benjamin, what exactly are you trying to do? Benjamin didn't dare fight back, screaming and begging for mercy. You said it yourself, you said you like being with me. Only when you're with me do you feel like you're still alive. Shut up. Rosie went completely crazy, hitting harder and harder, all dignity gone. After a long while, Rosie finally grew tired. She turned to look at me, her eyes filled with despair. She no longer paid Benjamin any attention. Instead, she collapsed to her knees in front of me, clinging tightly to my legs. Honey, believe me, I love you. I never once thought about cheating. I nodded. Now I finally understood why Rosie had been acting this way. It was nothing more than feeling too much pressure with me, too much humility, too little security. With Benjamin, she was the one in control, the one on top, the one who dominated everything. But what did that have to do with me? Chapter 7. Rosie, if you think I can tolerate you staying out all night and being with another man, then you're gravely mistaken. I'm not sick, and I'm definitely not a masochist. Rosie hurriedly swore. Honey, I swear, I'm completely clean. I was helpless. She really didn't understand human language. I don't care whether you're clean or not. To me, there's no difference. Do you understand? At that moment, the old man walked over and helped Rosie up from the floor. My daughter, sign it. Mason and I made an agreement long ago. He won't turn back. Rosie stopped crying and looked at the old man in confusion. Dad, what agreement do you mean? The old man sighed and slowly told the truth. My father was a college student who came from a small town. Through his own hard work, he finally gained a foothold in City A. Later, he met my mother. She admired his resilience and determination and married him despite her family's opposition. With the support of my mother's family, my father rose rapidly within a few years and became a respected figure. One could say my father was a classic Phoenix man, capable and fortunate, but good times didn't last. When I was 6, my mother fell in love with someone else. She thought it was normal. After all, as a wealthy heiress, she was used to couples each having their own affairs. But my father was a traditional man. He resolutely divorced her. Their divorce caused a huge stir throughout the city. Afterward, my mother bore a grudge against him. She couldn't understand why he wouldn't tolerate it. After all, those people outside couldn't shake his position. So she used her family's power to relentlessly suppress my father's company. At that time, my father was in a miserable state. Not only did he have to take care of me, he was also exhausted dealing with the pressure. Coincidentally, the old man had a patent that could break the deadlock. As my father's friend, he was righteous enough to transfer the patent to him for free. That was how my father survived the siege, and even grew stronger afterward. Once, after the two of them drank too much, they set a childhood betrothal between Rosie and me at the dinner table. That was how Rosie and I ended up together. But before the wedding, I went to the old man and laid out my condition. If Rosie disappointed me 3 times, I could file for divorce, and he would not stop me. After hearing the old man's account, Rosie looked at me with disappointment. Honey, do you truly love me? If you do, why would you propose such a condition? I was completely speechless. What kind of twisted logic was this? She was disappointed now. Rosie, can you stop making trouble for no reason? Be graceful. Let's separate peacefully after the divorce. But Rosie didn't wait for me to finish. She grabbed the car keys and rushed out. Benjamin followed closely behind her. I looked at the old man helplessly. He looked back at me just as helplessly. After leaving the Sun family home, I went straight back to the old residence. All these years, my father had lived alone. Aside from the butler and servants, he had no close companions. For my sake, he never remarried, playing both father and mother. I understood how hard that had been for him, so I still needed to tell him about the divorce. I greeted the butler upon entering and went into the living room. My father was drinking tea there. Seeing me come in alone, he frowned. Why did you come back by yourself? Where's your daughter-in-law? I sat down across from him and poured myself a cup of tea. That's your former daughter-in-law. I'm preparing to divorce her. My father's face darkened. Nonsense. Her grandfather is our family's benefactor. How could you bring up divorce with Rosie? Thankfully, I'd always had a stable temper growing up, otherwise I would have gotten into a full-blown fight with him. If you want to repay a debt of gratitude, then do it yourself. Why drag me into it? Chapter 8. Suppressing my anger. I told my dad everything, from start to finish, about Rosie and the male college student she was sponsoring. My dad frowned the entire time. After I finished, I joked with him. Don't you think Rosie is a bit like my mom? My dad shot me an annoyed glance. Rosie doesn't measure up to your mother. That was true. My maternal grandfather's family was still a top-tier family in City A. Rosie was far from that level. After thinking for a moment, my dad sighed. What a pity. She was a good kid. How did she end up like this? Sigh. If you want a divorce, then go ahead. I knew it. Once my dad understood the truth, there was no way he'd stop me from divorcing her. Fortunately, Rosie and I didn't have children, and we had notarized our assets before marriage. But did he only think Rosie was a pity? Wasn't I a pity too? 5 years of marriage, weren't those 5 years of my youth as well? After saying goodbye to my dad, I drove home. As soon as I reached the entrance, I saw someone kneeling at the door. I honked twice, but the person didn't move at all, as if they hadn't heard me. Left with no choice, I got out of the car. Only then did I realize the person kneeling on the ground was Rosie. When she saw me, Rosie crawled toward me on her knees. Rosie, who was always impeccably put together, looked indescribable at that moment. Her face was pale, her hair disheveled, tears hanging at the corners of her eyes. In the middle of the night, it was honestly frightening. I stepped back and raised a hand to stop her from coming closer. Why didn't you go inside? What are you doing kneeling here? Rosie choked up. Honey, I don't have the face to go in. I looked around but didn't see Benjamin. So I asked, where's your little assistant? Rosie lowered her head and muttered. I drove him away. I shook my head, half angry and half amused, completely unable to understand her logic. Didn't she like the feeling of controlling everything? Such a perfect backup, someone she could manipulate at will, and she just kicked him out like that. I brought Rosie back into the house. She eagerly poured tea and served me water. After she finished, she stood beside me with her head lowered, not saying a word. I told her to sit across from me and decided to wait until she calmed down before having an honest talk. This divorce was happening no matter what. There was no dragging it out. If it turned into a court battle, it wouldn't be good for either her company or mine. For all these years, Rosie and I had always presented ourselves as a loving couple. If the divorce became a public spectacle, both our companies would inevitably suffer losses. Rosie, you can bring up any conditions you want, I said calmly. Don't worry, if I can satisfy them, I will. I meant it. I had never thought about retaliating against Rosie, not because of our years as husband and wife, but out of respect for the old man. Without him, there wouldn't be what my family has today. That debt had to be remembered. When Rosie heard me bring up divorce, her eyes were full of pleading. Honey, can we not divorce? I swear, there's really nothing between me and Benjamin. I was completely speechless. Hadn't I made myself clear enough? Rosie, this divorce is non-negotiable. There's no room for compromise. Do you understand? Even if there's nothing between you and Benjamin, I still don't want you anymore. Rosie looked confused. Honey, why? I sighed. Because you drifted. You didn't hold the bottom line of marriage, loyalty. Just because your body didn't cheat doesn't mean you didn't cheat. Cheating doesn't come in degrees. There's no light or heavy version. Rosie was unwilling to accept it, yet she couldn't refute it. Seeing that I wouldn't budge, she gave a bleak smile. Honey, do you know this? Being with you is exhausting. I didn't speak. I listened quietly. You stand too high, shine too brightly. I exhausted myself just to be able to stand beside you, so no one would say I was clinging to you. I was careful about everything, playing the role of the perfect wife, terrified of making even the smallest mistake, but even so, I still felt like I was so far away from you. I didn't want to drift, but when I was with Benjamin, I finally felt like a real, flesh and blood person. With him, I didn't have to care about anything. I could live however I wanted. I nodded. That's why it's best for marriage to be between equals. Only then can two people be together without pressure. But Rosie, this is not a reason for emotional cheating. You have to understand, what separates humans from animals is that humans have boundaries and morals. You can say that being drawn to novelty is an animal instinct, but if instincts aren't restrained, then what's the difference between humans and animals? Don't forget, choosing marriage also means choosing loyalty to each other. Chapter 9. Rosie ultimately agreed to the divorce, though she still couldn't wrap her head around it. As we walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Rosie finally asked, Mason, why did you make that agreement with my dad before we even got married, giving me 3 chances? Did you already foresee that I would drift in the marriage? I looked at her helplessly. I'm not a god. How could I possibly predict the future? After a pause, I continued, the truth is, I never believed in marriage growing up. From the time I could remember, my parents did nothing but argue or give each other the cold shoulder, until they divorced. Back then, I made up my mind, either I wouldn't get married at all, or if I did, it would be to someone I truly loved. Someone who shared my values, and someone who would never betray me. Rosie sighed softly. Maybe our marriage was wrong from the very beginning. After all, it started from promises made by adults, didn't it? I thought about it for a moment. Not entirely. We were genuinely happy once. I even felt that if it were you for the rest of my life, that would have been fine. Rosie smiled and bowed to me. Mason, thank you, and I hope you'll find someone who truly loves you, shares your values, and will never betray you. With that, she turned and left. I didn't see her tears, but 2 droplets drifted down with the wind, landing on my lips, salty. Maybe I will find that person, and if I don't, I won't marry just for the sake of marriage. After all, I've already seen what a loveless marriage full of resentment and trivial misery looks like. After the divorce, I cut off all cooperation with the Sun Group. I wouldn't retaliate against Rosie Sun, but I wouldn't help her anymore either. From now on, we'd just be strangers. But Benjamin, I would absolutely not let him off. He ruined my marriage and disgusted me. If I let him go, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. After finding out how Benjamin was doing lately, I smiled. His life had been miserable. Rosie fired him and took back everything she had once given him. Still a senior in college, Benjamin had been cut off from sponsorship. After getting used to a pampered life, he couldn't endure the fall. He could no longer go back to the hard, grinding days of struggling his way out of a small rural town. Soon enough, his graduation thesis was rejected. He submitted it a second time, rejected again. One more rejection, and he'd have to delay graduation. He panicked. If he couldn't get his diploma and degree, he wouldn't be able to face his parents back in the countryside, the villagers who had pinned all their hopes on him, or even his own years of hardship. He went to find Rosie, hoping she could pull some strings for him, but the Sun Group, which he once entered freely, wouldn't even let him through the front gate anymore. By the time of the 3rd submission deadline, he hadn't even seen Rosie. Left with no choice, he submitted it anyway. The result was predictable, rejected again. No need to guess, I was the one behind it. After I promised to fund the construction of a new library for the university, the principal personally issued an order. Benjamin's thesis requirements were to be raised. The defense committee wasn't stupid, they knew exactly how high that standard was supposed to be. Benjamin completely broke down, unable to find Rosie, with no one to help him. He was utterly alone. He started making scenes, storming the principal's office, harassing his advisor, and just as he was causing the biggest fuss, an old man wearing a Zhongshan suit and yellow rubber shoes rushed in and slapped him hard across the face. Benjamin covered his face in terror. "Dad, why are you here?" The old man said nothing, only beating him with fists and kicks. Beside them, an older woman wailed and cried, "You wretch, how could you be so shameless, being someone's kept man in the city? How are your father and I supposed to hold our heads up in the village?" Benjamin was beaten half to death. Rural communities take this kind of thing seriously, especially since Benjamin was a man. He was the first college student in his family, the pride of the entire village. When he was close to being beaten to death, the teachers finally stepped in to stop the old man. They might have disliked Benjamin, but they couldn't just watch him get killed on campus. The old couple dragged Benjamin away, watching the 3 of them disappear. I smiled in satisfaction. That's right, spreading the news back in his hometown about him being someone's kept man. I had people do that too. Now the whole village knows that Benjamin became a kept man for the person who sponsored him, and even destroyed her family. They curse him as an ungrateful wretch. They curse his family for producing a shameless male gigolo. After Benjamin was gone, I thought about what kind of way out he could possibly still have. There was no way he could stay in his village anymore, and City A was even more impossible for him to gain a foothold in. In the end, the only option left to him was to leave his hometown far behind and try to make a living in another city. Sure enough, my guess was right. Benjamin went south, but the very morning he started his new job, my report letter arrived right on schedule that afternoon. The company immediately told him to get lost. Unwilling to give up, he tried several more companies, but wherever Benjamin went to apply, I mailed the evidence to that company. This time, Benjamin truly had no way out. Not long after, I received news of his suicide. Later on, I ran into Rosie a few times at private banquets. We only nodded at each other from a distance, a silent greeting at most. People who once loved each other can't become friends, because they've hurt each other. People who once loved each other also won't become enemies, because they once truly loved. So let's just become strangers. Mountains high, roads long, never to meet again.